the goddess of creative spark.
Ooh. Creation, Shakti.
Two
Two
hosts.
host. Hello, welcome to Frequency Rods. I'm Victoria, and I'm joined here with the lovely, beautiful, amazing, darling Tara.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much for the lovely introduction. I'm so happy to be here. Actually, it's a terrible. I do a better British accent, I have to say. When I lived in England, they were like, "Damn, girl, that's pretty good for an American." So, but I'm not going to do it here because then I'm going to embarrass myself. That was my poor Bridgerton one. Not that I've ever seen Bridgerton. Is that even what it's
Really?
called?
Oh, yeah.
Is it good?
It's kind of softcore for me.
Okay, wait. Can
I
we
had a
talk about
moment.
it? Go
I
ahead.
had
You
a
go.
moment with it. I binged it and had a moment with it. I
Okay,
think a lot
maybe.
of people did, right? A lot
Oh,
of girls did.
yeah, they definitely did. Talking about a little softcore, I just started, I don't know if I told you, I just started Fourth Wing.
I don't know what that is.
It's a book series. I can't remember the author off the top of my head. It's a fantasy book series about dragons and like becoming a rider of the dragon and all that, yada yada. I'm literally only 4 chapters in, and already I can't put it down. And
Ooh.
there's already like a little love triangle starting to fucking bubble. Anyway, so Victoria and I, we did our last episode and we were just like getting so much information that we were just like, we're just gonna see what happens. We decided that instead of trying to hone in on one topic and see what comes through, that this season maybe we're feeling the opposite flow of energy where we show up and speak to what's in our field instead of doing that behind the scenes, speaking about what's in our field and then like trying to find a common point, just doing it here and then figuring out what the theme is from there. So, as you saw, creation came up for both of us, which was something we touched upon last episode. But also at the end of the episode, as I was just editing, I took 3 little notes here because we mentioned some things that we, funny enough, we record these a little bit before they go out because of editing and getting content, yada yada. And we put in the episode, comment below if you want us to talk about this next topic. And then I realized we're recording the next topic before it even goes out for them to comment and say if they want that topic.
What was the next topic? I don't remember.
It was The Matrix, the Grail line, how the ceremony went yesterday. And you mentioned, which I wrote down first, which I thought was important, is like talking about what it means to be human, but more importantly, feeling safe in your body so that way it feels safe to be human.
Hmm.
So I feel like that is probably where we're headed, although let's freak check and then see what is in our field.
Let's. Whew. As Tara mentioned, we went to a ceremony last night, a sound ceremony. We also did EFT tapping. It was very beautiful, and the
Mm.
theme was self love. And so, self love is definitely top of mind, especially coming off of last week's, like, what the fuck just happened? What was my reality these last 5 months? Um, Realizing just how much love I gave to that relationship and how much of it was just me and him being a mirror to me and just amplifying my own love.
Mm.
So, really owning just how powerful um, it is when you fully show up and you're just like heart open, like, I love you and I want you to love me too. And knowing that at any moment that could change. I mean, that's like one of the most terrifying things about being in relationship. Um, but having that anchor of self love is what's going to bring you back back home to yourself in a way that you aren't going to get rocked, rattled, and rolled by external situations, and really get to experience the external situations as a way to hmm, perhaps heal or confront past trauma or ways
Mm,
of thinking or ways of doing that just are so far from your current reality, and it shows up in your field to just show you how much dissonance there is between you
mm,
and what was. And there's no need to like hate on or diss or talk shit on any of the things that don't resonate with you any longer. And so, I mean, this is such a stage of, I think, spiritual and emotional maturity that
mm.
I've been wanting to step into for a long time, but I just had all these like triggers that kept happening where I'd be like, "Rah!" Um, I feel like I've been making that noise a lot on here, so I hope I'm not in your ears. But I mean, we love us some weird ASMR, I suppose. We're getting into that
Apparently we
genre.
are.
Forced, like dominatrix ASMR by Tara. But you know what? I feel really good and really bad all at the same time. Um,
Mm.
and just kind of rocking and rolling. Why am I shake, rattle, and roll and rock and roll? I've been listening to a lot of Sam Cooke. Oh, I love Sam Cooke, especially around Valentine's Day. There's just something, I don't know, sweet and romantic about his energy. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm at. And I hope to dig a little deeper into self love. And I think all of the repercussions that we see today because of someone not knowing how to love
Mm,
themselves. So,
mm. What a mature way to look at it with the mirror that you were saying, how it was just mirrored back to you of the way that you self love.
mhm,
But something they showed me while you were speaking was this concept of our inner fire being fueled by self love or being fueled by divine divinity love. Um, And the concept of when you have a strong flame for self love, that internal flame, right? Imagine you are the candle, you have your flame, and now someone comes along and they are a candle and they have their flame, however big. When the two of you come together, you're lighting a third candle. The relationship is something outside of yourself, right? You
mhm,
are bringing your spark to it. Even though it's scary to think about that blowing out, if we remember that that doesn't blow out our candle, right? If we still continue to love ourselves, even in relations with others, that middle candle of relationship may blur, burn out or blow out for whatever reason. And that leads to some more darkness. So there is a bit of grief and loss, but you don't lose your internal fire. And that's the key there. So I'm so glad you brought attention to that because we cannot control someone else's ability to self love and what they're capable to put in that center flame, but we can control what we continue to give ourselves. And that is so, so important. So thank you for bringing that insight. Um, I do want both of us to share a little bit more about the ceremony. So I'll put a pin in that for me.
yeah,
But today, I guess there's a couple of things in my field. Specifically today, I'm just feeling silly. Um, just even Andrew was feeling silly before he left for work today. We were just running each other around, chasing each other around, or like throwing things at each other. I get very, I get very physically violent very easy for many reasons, and one of them would be silly. So I guess we were kind of like beating each other up a little bit. Enjoy, um, but that inner child dancing with my dragon has
mm,
been clear to me from yesterday's ceremony. This concept of like play, create, like creation, right? That comes from that curiosity, that wonder, that innocence of the child, that like no need to be in a box of what we've learned prior to being just a soul in a vessel. But that power from the dragon coming up underneath it. So that's really what's kind of been flowing for me. And today I really do want to talk about um, the grail paths, the paths that we can take, and what it really truly means to be human. um and something else as far as like potentially a freak check, but also just in this realm of thinking, I have never been a person who was attached to, how do I even phrase this? Like I feel like, and we'll get more into the matrix, but I feel like when I came into this body, I was hooked into the matrix, as we all are, and I feel like I missed a hook in a good way, but I missed a hook for connecting to certain humanly things like media. Growing up, yes, I had my favorite bands and whatever, but honestly, growing up, I lie like my biggest lie, my biggest consistent lie was that I knew every movie or knew every band or knew, right? Like I just like wanted to be in the loop with everybody and like went to so many concerts or whatever. But once I started to stop lying to myself, I started realizing I don't really know any actor. I barely watch any movies. I A kid asked me the other day, they said, "Who's your favorite artist?" And
Wow.
I literally don't like it's not even like, "Oh, I don't have one because I love so many." Like I don't have one because I don't listen to an artist ever. Ever. I listen to a style of music, a frequency and energy of music, and I just actually specifically look for new people. Like I'll use like Spotify's you know, playlists, and I never go in to look at that artist. I just listen to that one song, and which will lead me to a different song. So there's this weird like not resistance, but like I'm not hooked into that where I'm like so out of the loop from all of these things or so behind on all of these things because I don't feel a drive or a necessity to like pay attention to movies or award shows or music or anything really. I'm just kind of like rocking with whatever resonates with me in that moment, which I think is a good thing. But it's an interesting piece to not be hooked into because that's like one of the biggest pieces of the matrix that almost everyone is. So that's what's flowing through my field right now.
Hmm. Thank you for sharing. I mentioned to you yesterday, right before the ceremony, that energy harvesting and the idea of using things like the media, um, you know, are ways to control our minds and manipulate us. Like the card, one of the cards I pulled before
Mm-hmm.
this, manipulation, right? Um, but I think the idea of manipulation not always necessarily being a bad thing or a way to control others, you can manipulate your own thoughts. And so I think each word kind of has its spectrum of meaning and how extreme it can be, right? And so for the idea of manipulating your thoughts and what you choose to put yourself into, um I mean that's the ultimate act of sovereignty. And so we're always going to be plug-in and reminding, uh stoking your inner fire of remembrance for sovereignty and what that means. And I think that is part of what it really means to be human, in that you get to choose. That's the whole point of being here, this free will world, right? And it seems at times like we really have very little control, especially over the atrocities we're witnessing. And I mean, I think the idea of being an individual got really fuzzy and some really bad connotations because it came with the premise that you are intentionally trying to separate yourself as a means to let your ego have some breathing room. But on the other end of that concept is you're an individual because you are choosing to experience whatever it is you came here to experience on earth, and it's your divine right. And
Being human is very exciting and challenging situation. We've mentioned before that we all come from the same thing, broken down into many, 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 many versions of itself, and continuously broken down into many brackets. So when we think about who we are as a unique being, that is so fucking important to hold the duality of that we are all one. We are literally all made of the same elements. Everything is made of the same elements and atoms. And yet, your specific construction of elements and matter. And a piece of that cosmic egg we talked about in the last episode, holding your blueprint, holding your star seed, your all that, we have very distinct codes, very distinct medicine that we offer to the world. And if we start to think of it like a tapestry weaving together or program code, my code is a piece of such a larger code that makes the system run. So if I'm not running my authentic code, the system is not going to run properly to its maximum capacity. However, if I want to merge with others, I need to also understand that while my code is so important to making things run perfectly, so is the next person's code. And whatever the code that they're running for the system at this current moment is perfectly designed. Now, that may butt heads with yours, that may make your frequency sound high pitch in a way that hurts your ears, but it's for the mirroring purpose of how do we find harmony. I know that I might have said it before, but I do say it outside of here. Chaos brings reconfiguration. We need that jarring moment. Victoria mentioned finding that harmony in the ceremony. Eben, who was one of the facilitators, always says this when he's speaking about their sound journey. We find harmony through disharmony. So, allowing us to let others run their code authentically to them, even if it does spark these like twitches and bugs inside of ourselves, because that's what's going to allow either for you to find more harmony or for that person to hear that disharmony and find harmony. So when we're running in the matrix, having our hooks in many things, it's running our very specific matrix code, our very significant, DNA, cosmic light being code, keys, whatever it is you want to call them, uh, to just like run it through in a way that feels authentic to you.
So, what does that all mean in your reality, in your day to day? Because you could be listening to this and being like, cool, I kind of think I get it, but like, what does that look like in a human's reality, right? Like, what's the
Yeah.
very like 3D
Yeah.
experience of that? I mean, I think it all comes back to what you create and looking at creation beyond just making art, but creating your thoughts, creating
Mm.
your meals, creating your schedule, how you spend your time. Um, it's actually when you start to take ownership of your creativity, that's when you really start to wake up to the understanding of free will.
Mm. And I think creativity requires a level of vulnerability, and vulnerability requires a place that's safe to be vulnerable. So if
Hmm.
we want to be human, if we want to run our codes authentically, we first need to feel safe in our bodies, which is something that you mentioned, Victoria, in the end of the last episode. So I wonder how then, if we're backtracking now and the first step is being safe in our body, how do we feel safe in our body?
Whew. I mean,
Yeah.
fuck.
Hence why I passed that question off to you. I'm like, girl, you posed the question. I hope you have an answer.
Well, I mean, the idea of feeling safe was something I really struggled with last year, and it had a lot to do with my external environment. But I think we could look at it from that lens, but I think more so when you're looking at it from an internal perspective of going inside and
Mm,
facing the things, facing your demons, facing your patterns, facing your thoughts, especially the ones that you don't want anything to do with, the things that you're like, oh, I healed from that, I moved on. But then
mhm,
you keep, being presented these opportunities to mm, kind of move beyond it from a bird's eye view almost of
mhm,
just creating a new perspective, which then in return creates a new storyline for how you experienced whatever it was. And, hold on, I really actually need to sit with this for a moment because how does one feel safe in their body when there's so much internal conflict going on
mm,
that you want to run away from what you're experiencing? And so I think in order to really start the path of feeling safe is you have to feel uncomfortable and have
mm,
to I that's not my wish for you, that doesn't have to be everyone's experience, but
mhm.
oftentimes like you said, it's the chaos that jolts you into this new paradigm,
I think
period.
it's I think, uh, discomfort is something as humans we're going to experience no matter what. So my thought is, why not fucking front load that discomfort, go deep in it, sit in it heavy, feel it fully instead of having this like undertone of discomfort always because we're avoiding
Mhm.
something. And like you said, I think the first step, not for everyone, but most typically is just becoming the observer first, right?
Mhm.
Like, because we can only cognitively identify so much. So let's just become the observer. How am I feeling in these situations? When am I feeling this way? And there's so many ways that you can become the observer. An easy way, although it does take consistency, is journaling. Just journaling daily or weekly to just be like, and not thinking much about it, but just this is what happened and this is how I felt about it. Just observing your patterns, observing your triggers, observing these things, allowing yourself to feel how it feels in your body before we worry about making any changes. Allowing yourself to sit in that discomfort when it's at its most uncomfortable in order for you to figure out, as a like using it as a compass, where do I need to realign and feel safe in my body. Because once we realize that that discomfort is actually separate from ourselves, because what is true in us is love and authenticity and creativity, and that is what's true, our true essence. When we realize that this is separate from us, it's just something we experience, can we then start to create this sacred space in this vessel, is my opinion.
It's a great opinion.
Thanks. I'm not saying it's the right opinion, but
Well, I'm sure it'll spark a little something for someone out there. And going back to the idea of being the observer, I really do see that as being the beginning phases of practicing non-attachment. And
mm,
I'm telling you, life just hits different when you get into this rhythm with non-attachment where you're not attached to the outcome. And we hear this so much in spirituality, and to be honest, it's always annoyed the shit out of me because I want to control. I want to be like the casting director, the producer,
mhm.
director, editor, like, and you can't do that as the lead role.
Oh my
So,
god.
right?
Whoa.
Um yeah.
Sorry, you just blew my mind with that analogy.
Thanks. It just kind of came out of me, but I think there's this really delicate balance between controlling your internal and external. And so creating a safe container really does mean being selective with who you share your energy with.
Mm,
And, family's kind of the exception. Sometimes you have to have boundaries with family, and that's okay. But I think when you have control over who and what is in your life, that is one way that you can really start to like play those roles other than the lead role, in that we're already doing all of this anyways,
mhm.
and it's in our choices that we make every single second of every single day with who whom we share our energy with.
Yeah, that is major, right? Because once we start to once like you said, we become the observer, we recognize we're the main character, we can't control everything, but we get to start to notice what we can control, right? And if we can't control, for example, someone else's actions, what we can control is boundaries,
And
right?
our reaction.
And our reaction. So, oh my God, yes, because I feel that our body becomes an unsafe space. One, because of our brain, right? Telling us I'm not good enough, I'm this, I'm that. That's something that in time, with rewiring our brain, with working on like just that self-care piece, that self-love piece, which we could get into, we can rewire. But we become I feel that it feels unsafe in our body when our nervous system is spiked because we're reacting to something, and now physically I'm uncomfortable. I'm sweating, my heart is pounding, I'm worried, my breathing is heavy, maybe I'm shaking, maybe I'm feeling faint or nauseous. Now my body is an unsafe place to be because of either external or internal things f- activating my nervous system. So I think with becoming the observer, we start to recognize the small increments that is shifting in our nervous system, and we're able to catch it before it overactivates. Right now, we're not suppressing it because then we're pushing down our emotions. But okay, I'm feeling my nervous system activating. Instead of leading to panic, I'm recognizing it's coming up. What are strategies I know to calm my nervous system and then still listen and observe what message is coming through without feeling unsafe in my body, right?
Mm.
And I think in that ceremony, that EFT tapping, right, that bringing us back to our body, this was the first time I ever truly sat in a session for EFT tapping. And it was that reminder, right? What he did, his name was Magnus, he was wonderful. What he did was he took us through this self love journey where we met with people in our lives who have taught us otherwise than to self-love, that then we're not worthy, all of that, all while we're tapping our body to remind our heart and mind that we're here and we're safe, right? I'm doing these little, there's also like meridian lines and all that, that's a piece of it too, but just the basic like tapping my chest and being like, and even expressing anger, like he had us tapping our chest and being like, fuck you for doing that for me, that was not okay, right? But I'm still tapping my chest gently to be like, but I'm here and I'm taking care of myself. So it's allowing your nervous system to spike in its small steps and catching it and saying, okay, I'm going to deep breathe, or there's a strategy of putting your legs up on the wall for 1 minute to like reset your system. There are so many ways that we can calm our nervous system, even if it is through twisting a towel or screaming or punching the pillow, right? We get that out, recenter, listen, and then say, okay, well, either externally, internally, this made me feel unsafe. What's in my control to allow me to feel safe?
And that's why it's so important to have fun experimenting with all of these tools at your disposal and not to take anything like it's the thing that's going to save you, right? Knowing
Mm.
that you can pull on so many different tactics to soothe you and tend to you. And yeah, I think not taking that process so seriously is what's going to give you a better experience in understanding what's working for you and what's not. So,
And there's that non-attachment to the outcome, right?
yep,
Because not
totally.
I could do deep breaths and that could be my coping mechanism, but maybe I'm introduced to something where deep breaths are not working. And if I'm
Mhm.
so attached to the outcome of this deep breath is going to save me and it doesn't, I'm in full fucking panic mode. I have nothing left. I'm out of control. I'm not safe in my body because I'm so fixed to the outcome that deep breathing is going to save me. When we can be creative in the way that we approach these issues, when we approach this discomfort and say, well, that's not working anymore, instead of panicking and saying, well, now I'm unsafe, I need to be creative. I need to be flexible and adaptable and be like, you know what? Let me try this instead.
And sort of patting yourself on the back when some of these tools don't work for you any longer because that likely means you've outgrown whatever it
Mm,
is that
mhm.
you're working through, or you've taken it to another level where you have to meet it with something a little different.
Yes. And again, I think everyone gets really nervous because they don't know what to expect. When this thing isn't working
Mm.
anymore, I'm stepping into fear because I'm like, "Ah, like now what?" But if we can reframe it and say, "Ah, that's no longer working because I've evolved from that." Because the deeper that we go into our discomfort, the more light we can bring to it. We can illuminate it. We could see what it really is. Most of the time, it's it boils down to fear or like just like something that needs to be seen, right? Even that fear just needs to be seen. Oh, you're just scared? Yeah, I'm just scared. Okay, it's okay. I'm here. So, a lot of that digging and going deeper is just in order for you to be seen fully by yourself. Because I think we're so focused on other people seeing us fully, and we never feel fully seen because we never fully see ourselves. And if we never fully see ourselves, we can never fully present ourselves to someone else to be fully seen.
Well, I think so many people avoid themselves, and that avoidance looks like not loving oneself, right?
Mhm.
Looking for love outside of oneself,
Mhm.
uh, drugs, or any type of substance that takes you from your current reality. Sobriety is so key in working on your channel here. And by working on your channel, I mean the safe space, the safe path that you feel comfortable walking down. It takes so much courage to do this work. So if you
Mhm.
are listening to this and you're on this path and you are fucking facing your shit, like, I commend you for how much courage it takes. The shit is not easy. It is not comfortable. It is not fun, but on the contrary, it is.
It
Like,
is, it is.
that's yes, but it also isn't.
Yeah.
And I want to acknowledge the pain because mm, it's deep. And I mean, the cool thing is you probably are going to be liberated from this pain when you're no longer in your human vessel, so
Well, I
be in
think
it now.
yeah, and I think like you're saying that level of courage that's needed to face yourself, to love yourself, to do the work is the same level of courage we need to be out in the world and be authentic in who we are. And courage stems from fear. We're not just
Mhm.
courageous out of nowhere. It's because we are overcoming that fear. So in order to be that presence, to hold your codes, to lock it into the matrix authentically and honestly, we need to have courage, which requires us to face fears and feel fear and feel uncomfortable and be nervous. And that could be such a beautiful thing. He wants so much attention right now. That could be such a beautiful thing if you allow it to be. Something that came through in the ceremony yesterday, which was so shocking to me, was through that tapping, like I said, he had us face the person who made us, have this discomfort or face these challenges in ourselves. And mine was my father. And I was able to meet with him and he said, imagine them like apologizing to you and really saying, like, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Speaking of that red path, right? We're connected to our ancestors and what they have gone through. A piece of that is sitting in our DNA, it's activating within us. And through my own shadow work, I've been able to release my anger with my situation with my father because I know he was the way he was because that's what he learned. Um, and he was apologizing to me in this, visualization. And instead of anger, I was just like, I understand, right? What that part wasn't shocking to me because I've worked through that. What was shocking to me is him, obviously not real him crying because he was so happy that I understood. Not happy, but like, oh, relieved that I understood. And then I felt seen.
Mhm.
And I was like, whoa, wait a minute. The fact that I'm seeing him, and now obviously this is all happening internally, a piece of him that lives in me, if that piece of DNA that lives in me, that I'm able to see and say, no, 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 I understand. I see you. And in turn, I was like, oh shit, I see me. But when you can liberate that, and now my relationship with my dad is much better, and my relationship with myself as a child and my inner child is much better. And like all of this starts to kind of flow outward because I'm able to recognize that it's not just what I've went through, it's what they went through, it's what their parents went through, it's what
Mhm.
was happening collectively that they were all tapping into. That's where that detachment happens because I'm like, oh, this is so much bigger than myself. So, how can I give myself a little bit of grace and ease to work through this, find the courage to push through this? Because thank God for me, right? Like, how many generations haven't been able to do this kind of shit? So be
Mhm.
proud of yourself, even if it is challenging, even if you haven't gotten there yet, even if you're just dipping your toe in, because guess what? You're dipping your toe into waters that somebody down the grail line didn't even know existed. So thank you for doing the work because it does help yourself and the collective in doing that. The matrix, because we're all hooked in and feeling it too.
Well, I'll second that and say thank God for you, Tara. Whew.
I am God. You are God. I told you about that shirt that I saw that I love and I want it, even though like God is such a weird word that I'm trying to take back. But it was like, hello, God, it's me, God. And I was like, fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. That primordial energy, that creatrix, that is the creatrix, the creatrix. We are the creatrix. Um, that's why tapping, allowing yourself to get vulnerable and and in the discomfort, so that way you can unlock that creatrix, start creating from a space of authenticity and sovereignty is huge.
Hmm. Well, similar to you, my experience at the ceremony had to deal with my male lineage. And anytime I sit in these sound ceremonies with Megan and Eben, I have very profound realizations and visuals. And simply through the sound, the transmission of the space that they're creating, I'm able to tap into these memories, either from right now in this lifetime or that of my ancestors. And I never really gotten deep into my ancestral memories that have been
Mm,
passed down. And I think one thing that I've seen kind of be so detrimental to the males in my life um, is this toxic masculinity, this idea that they can do what they want when they want. They
mm,
have this sense of power that's like me, and this is how you're going to adapt to what I want. Um, and, kind of going back to what I mentioned earlier in the episode about my attraction to the narcissists, the sociopaths, the abusers, addicts,
mm,
all of that really does have to do with a lack of self love or maybe the lack of courage to love. Yeah.
mm,
Um, but I kept in the ceremony having these moments where I would be kind of hovering over the earth and very quickly zoom down into a very clear time and space. And I went to my like great 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 grandfather on my Romanian side. So picture Eastern Europe. Even it kind of had like Transylvania vibes, like
mm,
castle and um, dungeon vibes. And I zoomed in like face to face with this man, and I can so clearly even see his like red cheeks and his dark beard. And I was coming into the scene like I was this angel and I was going to blast him with love and kind of how you would imagine like an angel to come and like support you in some
Mm.
way. But as I got closer to him, I realized what he was doing and I wanted to kill him immediately. And then, of course, I realized I would not have been born. And that's just not the job of an angel. So I saw him harvesting the energy of women
Mm,
by taking their power away from them,
mm,
by creating so much dissonance between their acknowledgement of their sovereignty, of their choice,
mm,
of their ability to practice their medicine. Because my Romanian women ancestors are so fucking psychic. Like, I'm so grateful
mm.
to have this genetic disposition in me, which I very much, I know I chose it for this reason. But holy shit, if it didn't come with the ancestral healing responsibilities that I feel,
Oof.
um, to confront this very toxic masculine energy that is inside of each of us to varying degrees, regardless of your gender. Um, and it just brought so much perspective to the relationships where I have lost myself and I've given of myself in a way
Mm,
where the other person benefited from it. And it's like I lost my spark. I lost my that little twinkle of light in my eyes. And as I've been like healing from this past experience with the man who was a total philanderer, right? Like, I love that word so much. Fucking philanderer. But not a slick one, I will say that one.
It just reminds me back to what you were saying with the mirroring in the relationship, right? So here is your whatever grandfather who is harvesting energy. And my first thought is, damn, not only, now hold on. I'm not saying that that wasn't fucked up, unacceptable, and I don't feel bad for the women because I do. However, when we're talking about healing our ancestral line, it's knowing what's unacceptable, being clear in what's unacceptable, but also finding the empathy and saying, well, what is it that needs to be seen in you, right? That I can see for you, that I can help you see. Um, so that immediately makes me think like, damn, how sad that he was so detached from his own power. He was so detached from the self love that he could be giving himself. He needed to literally drain every woman around him.
well, that's the major shift in power that's happening right now, especially as we begin the year of the dragon, is that power does not look like that any longer.
Exactly.
So, I mean, he thought he was in power. There, like, the concept of him
Exactly.
thinking, "Oh, I'm detached from my power," is so foreign to that experience, but that's
Yep.
not how we're living anymore.
Right. Because think about it. Even back then, right? I think we're not living right now for many reasons. And a big reason, one of the big reasons is because we're being conscious of where our energy is going. And I'm not going to fucking let you drain me. I'm energetically aware. But even back then, when he wasn't, his frame was not, I don't have enough power I need to get from yours. It's, I'm power hungry. So I need to take from you. And I'm hungry because this is actually not feeding me. Again, not conscious of that. But what's actually happening is I'm so energetically hungry and continuously
Mm.
hungry and trying to consume continuously because it's actually not fueling me. Because taking someone else's energy will never actually fuel you, right? Sharing
Wait,
someone's
can we pause? Hold on, pause and repeat that again.
taking someone's energy will never actually fuel you. It sparks something in you to ignite energy. Someone showing you their love, that's not filling you, but it's reminding you that you're capable of love and that you are loved. And then you're sparking that inside yourself. So he was ravenous for this energy in his mind, thinking, yeah, give me that power. Look how powerful I am. I need more. I need more. I want more. I want more. I'm greedy. But what was really happening inside was he was energetically starving, right?
Yes.
And when we can go back
Yes.
and start looking at things that way in our ancestral line, are we able to say, ah, okay, again, not okay, fuck you for doing that. But also, let's go literally time jump and say, hey, buddy, Notice how this isn't fucking working for you? Okay, let me show you what is gonna fucking work for you, you dumb piece of shit. Because sometimes you gotta say it, right? Or in my case, it wasn't, my father was also very controlling, and I always felt like, and belittling and trying to steal that energy from others. And I thought the same thing, like, oh, whatever. And then I realized, like, and there is a piece of that for sure, but also just trying to see underneath, right? We all are, at least in some capacity, however small that might be, love and light. There is light consciousness in this body, right? So there is some piece of it there. And if we can tap into that and read that codex, can we have a better understanding and start to have that, like, detachment a little bit more? So for me, that realization for my father was, oh, you're controlling because that is your form of love, because you feel if we're not meeting the mold that you've created, the world would rip us apart. Because he genuinely felt that women needed to look a certain way or act a certain way in order to be successful, not just in his relationship, but in life. Or that, like, coming from the military, he would, like, force my brothers to make their bed where a quarter bounced off their bed. Like, that's not because he was like, I want to torture you. He was like, this is what it means to be human. This is what it means to be a man. This is what it means to be a woman. And if I don't drill it into your brain, then I'm not being successful because I'm not protecting you from the world out there. And once I was able to put that lens on and go, oh, fuck, his abuse was love. Not a good one, not an acceptable one, not one that we ever want again. But I can at least see the lens of that's where his code was running, and it wasn't hooked in properly to his actual blueprint because of the way he grew up and the way his father grew up and the fact that he went to the military and then was a corrections officer, right? These are all matrix that he's hooking in, and now he's not able to run the actual code that he was born with, or he was to an extent, because that code was regenerated from his lineage. So there's just so much work that we could be looking into as far as, like, the red path, that earthly path, because we have to be here. If you're here, right? Obviously. We if you're listening to this from the Pleiadian star system, I guess you don't have to be on Earth, but for those of us listening on Earth, we have to be here, and it's a fucking main goal, is to walk here on the red path, meaning on earth, in the matrix, with the collective consciousness, with your bloodline and ancestors, and also be walking the white path, which is the path of spirit, which is your connection. So you have your horizontal and vertical plane that you are working on in this 3-dimensional, 5-dimensional space that you need to be navigating. And that's really fucking tricky. And when you recognize how important that red path is, right? If you were just walking the white path, that doesn't necessarily mean that all is going to be fine and dandy here, because we're on earth, we're hooked into the matrix, we're here to do the work. So when we start to focus on energy flow from one path to another, right? I'm on my red path and the energy is flowing to the white path. That means I'm honoring my ancestors. I'm doing ceremonies, I'm doing healing, right? Because that's honoring this red path through cosmic and energetic space that I can tap into and kind of morph through, or give grace or give thanks. Or the other way around, where we're getting information from source, when we're getting energetic information to use in the red path, right? I'm not just getting this information and being like, that's cool, and now I'm not going to use it, right? I'm not just working on my ancestry and then just being like, cool, now I'm not going to do anything with it, right? I need to be moving the energy in both directions. That's what it means to be human. That's why we're both magnetic and electro beings. We're both. We're magnetic beings and we're electric beings and magnetic beings. There's the poles on the earth. We are connected to the rhythm of the earth, but we also are electric beings, and the frequencies in sound journeys and the planets and all that affect one another. So when we can create a safe container in our body to run the energy in both directions, can that creative force flow freely in both directions?
It can, and I witness it in you all the time. So I love how you gave us that visual because you really do practice. You do walk the path that you talk about. So,
Thank you. I try. I try.
you do. Well, okay. I just want to say real quick that the major realization I had on this journey of self-love is that when entering into relationship, what really matters most to me is that I love who I am in that relationship.
Hmm.
Because if you don't love who you are in relationship, there's going to be a lot of drama, conflict, lies. Like even if you're not like intentionally lying, you're just kind of like living a lie because there's so
Mm.
much disconnect between who you really are and who you are in this present moment. Um, so yeah, really just sitting with and observing as I begin to date again. Do I love who I am when I'm with this person?
Mm. I love that thought, and I like that you say it that way. Do I love who I am in this relationship? It's not am I happy? Because in relationships we're not always going to be happy,
Mhm.
but even when I'm angry, even when I'm disappointed or frustrated or sad, am I being true to who I am? Am I holding integrity? Do I love the way that I'm processing this? Or am I not happy with the way I'm processing it, but I'm very happy with the opportunity to work on it because maybe in a past relationship you never did get a chance to work on it because you never had the opportunity to. So, do I love who I am in this relationship? That's such a powerful question.
That's a clip if I've ever heard one. Well, my dear, I'm feeling good. I this we went a lot of places today and I like
We
it. I
did.
like this new style.
Me too. Me too. I don't know what the main theme of this one is. Maybe it's discomfort. Maybe it's, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's creatrix, even though we barely talked about that, but I'm
I think
happy
we
with
did
it.
more than you realize.
I
Yeah,
never realize what we're talking about.
same.
And that's not because we're not intentional. It's because we're letting the creativity flow without judgment or parameters. So fuck around and find out. No, I'm kidding.
Um, so like it, share it, subscribe it, prescribe it.
We love you guys.
We do so much. See you next week.